get the opulence, or certainly achieve the mercy of Golok Vrindavan. কাককে গরুর করে ওইছে দয়াময়, তাই তো প্রার্থনা করি ছাড়ি লাজ ভয়. Just like Garudev will bestow his mercy upon an insignificant crow, O merciful one, therefore we giving up all fear and shame, we are begging you for mercy. তব আবেদনে কবে কৃষ্ণ দয়াময়, এহেন পামর প্রতি হবে না সদয়. By your appeal, when the all merciful Lord Sri Krishna will be merciful unto me, and Lord Sri Krishna will show his pity on me. অপরাধী আমি, তুমি কৃপার বারিধি, নিজ গুণে কৃপা করো হে গুণনিধি. I am an offender, but you are an ocean of mercy. Please, by your own wonderful qualities, bestow your mercy, O ocean of qualities. Hari Guru Vaishnav charane bhakati, Bhadra Charu Das mage koriya pranati. At the lotus feet of Hari, Guru and Vaishnavas.
What do I do now? Okay. I'm on the line. I have to turn on the video. Where's the video? Come here. Oh, start my video. Okay, yeah. Okay. All right.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today we have with us again His Grace Sarvabhavana Prabhu. He is the good friend of Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. As Bhakti Charu Maharaj has mentioned in his own book, Ocean of Mercy, Guru Maharaj was traveling with one of his friends whose name was Prasun. And then later on, Prasun Prabhu was got initiated by Srila Prabhupada as a Sarvabhavana Prabhu. So when Guru Maharaj meets second time to Prasun Prabhu in India, he was already a disciple of Srila Prabhupada and he was following his ISKCON. So that was the experience, and like we had a previous session with Sarvabhavana Prabhu, and it was like very small session and we had only glimpses. So today we will be able to get all the intimate pastimes of Srila Guru Maharaj and Sarvabhavana Prabhu in Krishna consciousness. So we welcome His Grace Sarvabhavana Prabhu by chanting one Hare Krishna Maha Mantra loudly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Sarvabhavana Prabhu, over to you.
Yes. Can I see whoever is attending, or is it not possible?
Sorry, Prabhuji?
Is it possible to see who are attending this?
Yes, actually we have 140 participants. On the screen there is a option where you can see the gallery view. So you will be able to see. It's on the right top corner where it's like two options. One is full screen and one is speaker view.
Gallery view.
Yes.
Okay, so all these devotees are attending.
Yes, Prabhuji.
They are attending over through Zoom, are they?
Yes, they are on this Zoom, and they are ready to have your association over Zoom.
Okay, association over Zoom is very well put. Anyhow,
yes,
okay. Nama Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Mancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanang pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Namo mahavadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauritvishe Namah. He Krishna Karunar Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranavami Hari Priye Man Brindavai Tulasi Devai Priya Vai Keshavasya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Sattvatai Namo Namah. So last time I was bringing the subject of how our Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada was calling some of his previous disciples, in the sense that we should not think that all who joined Srila Prabhupada were there for the first time. There were quite a few amongst his disciples who were summoned by Srila Prabhupada. Although all the individuals will not remember these things from the past life, however, incidences and events point to this truth that some disciples had already previous association and contact to Srila Prabhupada in the same capacity as a disciple to a spiritual master. Srila Narottam Das Thakur is singing that Jo Khudan dilo je janme janme Prabhu se Dibya Gyan Hriday Prakashita. So this prayer is not simply a sentimental outburst, although there are spiritual emotions attached to this particular prayer, where Srila Narottam Das Thakur is praying that birth after birth he may be with great fortune, showered with great fortune, so that he can serve his spiritual master Srila Lokanath Goswami. That particular relationship between Narottam Das Thakur and Srila Lokanath Goswami should be a regular remembrance of how a disciple should serve the spiritual master. So in the case of my good friend, Bhakti Charu Swami, this was a calling from Srila Prabhupada, what he received. But it looked as if I was the media who arranged for that meeting. So I feel also fortunate in this dynamic of bringing Bhakti Charu Maharaj to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, although their connection was nothing new. as I said, as the events unfolded, it became very obvious to me that Bhakti Charu Maharaj was being waited by Srila Prabhupada to come and join. Initially, Prabhupada had very few Indian bodied disciples. And he trained them. In fact, when the devotees had read more of the scriptures, they could understand that only by great fortune does one get shelter at the lotus feet of a pure, bona fide personality, Acharya. So some of them even questioned Srila Prabhupada whether they had this great fortune to come to take shelter at his lotus feet. So Prabhupada had actually said, I have given you that good fortune, that sukriti that is required to take shelter of a pure devotee. Because as a neophyte, a Kanishta Adhikari is unable to discriminate between who is advanced and who is a beginner. So it is almost impossible for a Kanishta Adhikari to recognize a pure devotee, Uttam Adhikari. However, in the case of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, it was so immediate and there was no kind of requirement for introduction. It was almost self-evident that Srila Prabhupada was waiting for him. And in many ways, Prabhupada also, Srila Prabhupada showed, exhibited certain ways by which we could understand that Bhakti Charu Maharaj was a soul waiting to serve his eternal spiritual master. It took some time that Maharaj met Srila Prabhupada quite late, shall we say. But in spiritual activities in life, late and early is a very individual and personal consideration. Although he was late, but Srila Prabhupada immediately, within a few months, gave him all 3 initiations, including sannyas. Now, that was breaking protocol. He did that only with Gaur Govind Maharaj, the other personality. Also an eternal servant of Srila Prabhupada, just like Bhakti Charu Maharaj was an eternal servant of Srila Prabhupada. And the intimacy in the way Bhakti Charu Maharaj was serving Srila Prabhupada was quite evident that this was not something new. Srila Rupa Goswami tells us in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that one should serve the spiritual master in 2 spiritual moods. One is called Vishrambhena. Vishrambhena means intimate. What is the meaning of an intimate service? This I noticed in the way Bhakti Charu Maharaj was serving Srila Prabhupada. The few times I had the opportunity to be there, Vishrambha service means to already know the heart of the spiritual master, to know his mind. That is only possible if the spiritual master also wants to reveal that to his disciple. Something which is very intimate. Because when disciples join, especially in the beginning, we all come with material contaminated consciousness. The material contaminated consciousness means there's a streak of envy in all. Or to speak of the other enemies of the mind, they're all there. And a sincere devotee will have to constantly fight against this madness of the mind. Especially when a disciple is very close, intimate, physically very close to the spiritual master. There's also the tendency of fault finding, because that's how we have been raised in the mundane consciousness. And although fault finding seems to be a rather innocent kind of fault and imperfection, flaw in the character of someone, yet in the service of the spiritual master especially, and Krishna also, this plays an extremely important factor that we have to remove, this negativity. And in the Gundicha pastime, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu highlighted this flaw in our character, fault finding. They were the smallest dust particles that had to be swept away. So, bringing Bhakti Charu Maharaj into his intimate fold would seem rather surprising. One thing is that when there is no one else, then such a thing, such an act on the part of a spiritual master would be normal. Because the spiritual master, especially Srila Prabhupada, went on a mission. He was carrying the orders of his spiritual master on his head. As Prabhupada always put it, not for a day I forgot the order of my spiritual master. He always remembered it. So, considering the fact that Bhakti Charu Maharaj joined very late in the sense that, unfortunate for all of us, we were orphaned at a very early age in our spiritual development. Srila Prabhupada left quite early, orphaning us. So in that sense, Maharaj, Bhakti Charu Maharaj came very late. However, the time that Srila Prabhupada gave his association to Bhakti Charu Maharaj was extremely intense. And only someone who is completely free from fault finding and envy and these sort of things, these enemies of the mind, Shararipu, is it possible for him to serve the spiritual master on such an intimate basis? Not only was he answering Srila Prabhupada's personal letters in Bengali and Hindi specifically, he was also cooking for him. And when Srila Prabhupada was exhibiting the pastime of being sick, Bhakti Charu Maharaj was the only one who was giving him the medicines. I remember one incident. I was there at that time in Vrindavan. I suppose he must have written about this in the Ocean of Mercy. Tell me if I am repeating what he's already written. However, there will always be details missing in a writing, what details one sees when one witnesses it. So I was witness to this particular pastime. This was in Vrindavan. Prabhupada had already come back from Rishikesh in 77. And in the beginning, Prabhupada was taking prasad, and then he stopped, wanted to leave. And then once again, due to the request of all his disciples, and specifically one of his very dear god brother, Srila Prabhupada's god brother, Akinchan Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, Prabhupada agreed to not leave at that time. So Bhakti Charu Maharaj was the cook. In fact, Prabhupada at that time was refusing to take prasadam cooked by anyone else. I don't know if he has mentioned that. There were 3 persons who were allowed to cook for Prabhupada. In case Bhakti Charu Maharaj was too busy for some other errands that Prabhupada would send him on, then Bibhu Chaitanya was at that time the head cook for the deities in Vrindavan, for Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Gaur Nitai, and Shri Radha Shyama Sundar. Prabhupada wanted, or rather, one of Prabhupada's intimate friends in Vrindavan was an Ayurvedic doctor. He was also a Vaishnava. So during the time when Prabhupada was living in Vrindavan for this 9 years almost, before he took the hazardous journey on board Jaladuta to America. Bonomali Vaidya, that was his name. I was very fortunate to also meet him. Had advised that Prabhupada should take Karela every day. And that was not exactly the Karela season. And besides, Karela doesn't grow in Vrindavan area, in that area. Because Karela comes mostly from Bengal and maybe some other more humid places. So Bhakti Charu Maharaj finished his morning chores for Srila Prabhupada and he left to look for Karela in the vegetable market that's in Loi Bazaar in Vrindavan. There's a vegetable market where you can get fresh vegetables. So he went there and he was looking for it. There was no one who had Karela. It was very difficult. Finally, I think he did find someone who had Karela. So by that time, the time for taking medicine for Srila Prabhupada was already past. And Prabhupada was, as we know him, is very much punctual for everything. Prabhupada's punctuality was on my thought, was a great point of discussion, how punctual he was. So when it was getting late, he was a little worried. And in fact, some of the other devotees, senior devotees who were also sharing services to Srila Prabhupada, doing other chores and errands for Srila Prabhupada, they offered to give him the medicine. But Srila Prabhupada refused, and he kept asking, where is Bhakti Charu Swami? So it was almost a half an hour delay. So when he finally arrived, Prabhupada was very upset because the time for medicine had passed, and then he had to wait for some time before he could again take prasadam. So there was a lot of things involved in that regarding timing. So Prabhupada was very upset, and as soon as Maharaj walked in, he chastised him. I saw the incident, and what was wonderful was how Maharaj just hung his head, kept completely silent, although he had gone on an errand for Srila Prabhupada. Sorry. Although he had gone on an errand for Srila Prabhupada, it was his service. It's not that he was on some other personal business or anything of that sort. However, He never offered any excuse. And as usual, Prabhupada's anger would evaporate like the morning fog as soon as the sun comes up. It just vanishes very fast. And then Prabhupada realized and felt very bad. Asked him, where did you go? Kothai gishe? He said, during the last days of Srila Prabhupada's stay on the planet, he would always speak, I say always, very consciously, with Bhakti Charu Maharaj, whenever he would speak with him. That was also a shift from Prabhupada's usual demeanor, because whether anybody was there or not, Prabhupada would always speak in English. However, the last days, months, I would say, he was speaking with Maharaj only in Bengali. So he asked him, Kothai giyeshile? Where did you go? So he explained, Prabhupada, it was very difficult to find Gorilla. It took me a lot of time. Tears were in his eyes. He could realize that it was very important for Prabhupada to take his medicines on time. However, on the other hand, Karela was also a medicine for Srila Prabhupada, because the Ayurveda doctor had prescribed that. So that was, he was caught in the horns of a dilemma, as we say. However, not a word of protest. Not a word in defense of himself. Excuse me. And this happened many times, actually. So we see that such an intimate relationship, like a father to a son, a loving father. Our material fathers, they are very kind, of course, but the spiritual father is even more kind, because he saves our soul. Our seminal fathers are unable to do that, except, of course, if the father is a devotee. So as I was saying, that from the very beginning I realized that this was not an ordinary relationship. Rather, it was like a continuation, as if the intervening period from one life to another just melted away. And he took up the service to Srila Prabhupada in such a self-evident manner. Just like Srila Prabhupada was waiting, in one sense, for this devotee, disciple of his, to appear. Similarly, Bhakti Charu Maharaj was waiting to take up his service to his eternal spiritual master from where he had left off, so to speak, in his past life. Krishna is saying that even the smallest amount of service done to this spiritual master or Krishna is never destroyed. Swalpamapi asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Swalpamapi asya, even the slightest. So to me it seemed that that this particular service was waiting for Bhakti Charu Maharaj, because there was at that time very few, in fact none I would say, who could handle the correspondence, Srila Prabhupada's personal correspondence in Bengali and Hindi. So Prabhupada himself was answering those letters, which naturally took up a lot of his time. I mean, Prabhupada had such a busy schedule. It's absolutely inimitable, considering the age and everything else. It was such a dynamic lifestyle. Hardly 2 hours of sleep Srila Prabhupada used to get. And in the afternoon, he would lie down for some time just to rest, not to sleep. So these correspondence was naturally eating into his time from his management of this huge society which had spawned so fast, and he would get telephone calls at any odd hour, so much so that he had to remove his telephone from, especially in the night, from his room, because sometimes devotees in different parts of the world didn't always calculated the time difference. So when Bhakti Charu Maharaj came, very soon he was given the service of answering Prabhupada's Bengali and Hindi letters. Haribol Prabhu, I don't know how long I am to speak. So if you can give me some indication how much time I have, I will then try to. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Generally, like we have up to 8:30, but we can also go up to 8:45 also. You can have some questions. I'll drop a message to the devotees that if they have any question, by that time you can share some more. And if I receive some questions, then I'll notify you.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So another very, now for something on the lighter side. Of course, the spiritual masters' light and heavier sides hardly make any difference because they're all transcendental. Srila Prabhupada was also a very humorous person. But I think due to a difference in culture, most of his Western-bodied disciples could not always appreciate. And I am not presuming that, I'm not assuming that. In fact, I was told, especially by two of Prabhupada's disciples who were his secretary at some stage or the other. One was Hansadutta Swami. He became later Hansadutta Swami. He was my GBC in Germany. When I joined, he was the GBC. So there was a kind of a nice relationship, a friendly relationship. And Harikesh, who then became the GBC later on, also of Germany, both told me that Prabhupada would crack a joke. He would, and he would be the only person laughing in that whole room of devotees because nobody could really understand. And so Prabhupada realized that, and he would then try to explain. But when you explain a joke, most of the fun is gone. So this time what happened in Mumbai, at that time I was stationed in Mumbai, Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada had just come back from the festival, Mayapur festival. And he wanted to check the new place. These twin towers in Mumbai. If you've visited our Juhu temple, you would see this as soon as you enter into the main gate. On the right-hand side are twin towers, guest houses. And Prabhupada wanted that his quarters be shifted from an old building that was already there when the property was bought in Juhu. There were a lot of old buildings, mostly two-storied. And one of these buildings was housing the BBT, as well as Srila Prabhupada's personal quarters. He was staying there. So he came to Mumbai, and he wanted some rasgullas. Somehow or the other, he had actually Bhakti Charu Maharaj wanted, sorry, not that Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Charu Maharaj wanted to surprise Srila Prabhupada because I had told Bhakti Charu Maharaj, in fact, I had actually even given him a rasgulla that was available in one of the Bengali sweet shops in, where was it? In Santa Cruz, yeah, Santa Cruz Market, which is not far from Juhu. We used to do our marketing there also. So when I went marketing, I saw this Bengali sweet shop, and I saw this the Bengali sweets, especially the rasgulla. And I bought some. He offered it, and then Bhakti Charu Maharaj said, "I want to surprise Srila Prabhupada. Can you get to me?" So I said, "Yes." So I went and got some rasgullas and rasamalai also. was also a nice Rasamalai. So we brought it back. Prabhupada was very happy. So then Bhakti Charu Maharaj came and said that, look, you have to get again the next day. This. So I went and got again. And this time Prabhupada said, what you want to do with me, feeding me every day with Rasgulla and things like that. So Bhakti Charu Maharaj was always very much conscious, very attentive to his service to Srila Prabhupada. He was always looking for ways to serve Srila Prabhupada in such a way as to give him enough time, because especially in 77, this incident was in 77, and already Prabhupada was quite sick, ill health. He had gone to Rishikesh for about only a week. I didn't want to stay there any longer because it was missing, Prabhupada was missing his service. Because he had to oversee a huge society. And in those days, even then, even although Prabhupada trained many of us, but it was not the same standard that Prabhupada actually expected from us. Many a times, we fell quite short of the standard that he expected from us. So Maharaj was always extremely conscientious. Whenever there was some time, he would come and meet me and we would talk, and he would reveal to me a few things which he found a little inexplicable. Quite a few things. So like that, we would even exchange our views and ideas, and hear so much wonderful pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. So an ideal disciple considers the spiritual master to be Krishna. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is singing Guru Vashtaka, Sakshad Hari. The spiritual master is Sakshad Hari. Krishna is very far away. Krishna first appears in the heart of his devotee before he appears in person before him. So there was no way we could, even the Madhyama Adhikaris, what to speak of Kanishta Adhikaris, would be able to understand whether we were able to render service to Krishna or not. So, Sakshad Hari means that Krishna has appeared as the spiritual master. He is the expansion, the external expansion of the Paramatma. And it is the proper understanding of Sambandha Gyan that the spiritual master should be served like Krishna. Haribol, ich kann jetzt nicht sprechen, weil ich habe jetzt ein Skype, okay? Ich rufe dich später an, Haribol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, there are two devotees, they were requesting your pastimes with Guru Maharaj during your hitchhiking towards Europe, especially in Basra, Baghdad, and all this. Is because they are reading Ocean of Mercy, so they
Is it mentioned there?
Yes, it is mentioned, especially the Basra and Baghdad pastimes, and how you were traveling and hitchhiking, then you are getting help from the people over there and staying with the devotees.
Well, to tell you frankly, so many things which happened. It was an adventurous journey for us. We had just finished our college, young boys, a heart full of expectation, a mind looking for adventure, and we took a cargo ship from Mumbai to Basra. It was a 11-day journey. We often spoke about it, not because it was such a nice and comfortable journey. On the contrary, it was often rather painful because of we are not used to traveling. I mean, sailing on ships, and you get this retching feeling and things like that. And the whole place was stinking because people were just throwing up and all that sort of thing. Anyhow, so we had these 10 days were not something that one could write home about, let's say. Finally, we arrived in Basra. And that was a great relief for us. So we actually didn't know where to go. We had no address, nothing. We just had our sleeping bags and our rucksacks. That's it. And as I said, a mind filled with fantasy of, what could happen anytime. So we saw, after we had walked about, say, 10 minutes, I think, no idea in which direction we were going. We just going towards the city because we had to leave the port area. Some Indian person, the South Indian, he saw, apparently we looked Indian, and he was right in that. He came and approached us and said, "Where are you going?" So he said, "We don't know. We're just going. We're looking for a place, probably a hotel or whatever." So he said, "No, you come with me. I will arrange for everything." So we went along, and he took us to a church, a Catholic church. In those days, Saddam Hussein was in power, but he did not stop the Christians from attending their church. But they were not allowed to proselytize. So we went to the church, and the padre, the pastor, was very kind. He said, "Yes, you can stay here. No problem." So we began to stay there for a few days. We stayed there. It was a very humble place. We had our sleeping bags, no doubt. And since it was summer, I mean, it was the beginning of April, I think it was. So it was warm, didn't need. So we stayed there in Basra for a while, and then we moved on to Baghdad. That was a very interesting city. And there also we met some very nice people who invited us to stay with them. And we made quite a lot of friends. I must say those Iraqis were very friendly, open people. Unlike what you hear through the media. And they knew Indians because of Bollywood films. They all knew the songs, the Hindi songs from those days. They used to get to see the old films. And like then we got invited by several people for, you know. And then somehow or the other, Bhakti Charu Maharaj didn't want to remain in Baghdad. And he met this English boy. And he decided to go ahead with him, and we kind of agreed to meet up in Istanbul. So that we each took our own ways. It was also easier for a single person to find accommodation and even a ride. You didn't get a hitchhike on cars. There was hardly any cars like that who would give a hitchhike. Never stopped. And interstate, intercountry lorries were there. They were carrying cargo. So they would stop and give us a lift. So that's how we were mostly moving on in the Middle East. Well, you know, this is an epic story, really. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. We were on the road for several months, and there were so many incidences, I could say. And each incident would take, you know, some time. And, you know, such incidences you can't speak about in passing, so to speak. So maybe some other time we will talk more in detail about our journey through the Middle East. But if there's any questions regarding my talk on this relationship between Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj, then I would rather answer that, because that would already take up all the time that is left.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Devotees were generally like requesting to listen more and more, because I was watching the different devotees. They were relishing hearing you and the pastime with Guru Maharaj. So definitely we will arrange some another session with you, in which you can also share the hitchhiking pastimes towards the Europe and all these things, because it has been mentioned in Ocean of Mercy, and devotees are so much relishing this pastime.
Okay. I mean, when we left Basra, because what happened was in this church, we were given a room for about 5-6 days, I think we stayed. And then he had guests. The pastor had guests. Other Christian priests, I think, had come, and so we had to move out of the room and were allowed to still stay, sleep on the portico at the entrance of the church. But that wasn't any problem, save and except that the first mass, church mass, began at 6 o'clock. You see, as soon as summer set in, April was already considered summer, because the temperature would rise to 48, sometimes to 52. It was extremely hot and dry. So there's actually no need for any kind of covering. You could actually sleep under the open sky. However, we were given this portico entrance. We would, on either side, we put out our sleeping bags and were sleeping. But in those days, as with the advent of summer, the entire city, the entire country actually, was following a time rhythm. It was quite unusual. All the offices, banks, and everything opened up at 6 o'clock and worked till 10. And from 10 to 6, all the offices and everything was closed. Or I think it was 4. Yes, 4. You couldn't even venture out. It was so hot in the sun. And just to give you an idea of how hot it was, early in the morning, it was a state-run delivery system of delivering two huge chunks of ice blocks, also really, 1.5 meters by 1 meter, with a thickness of about 14-15 centimeters, or even thicker. 2 of them. And practically every house had a opening from the roadside where these 2 blocks of ice could fit in. And then they had this was the system. It worked fine, actually. They had a fan, a ventilator outside blowing this icy, blowing onto the ice, and the cool air, which would really cool the entire house. And instead of wasting a lot of electricity on AC, and AC couldn't have carried that weight also. And I don't think the government had at that time so much electric supply. So we were out in the portico, but as I said, at 6 o'clock the mass started, and the people started coming to attend the church mass from about 10 to 6, 5 to 6. And they were talking, and this so naturally disturbed our sleep, because you went to sleep late. The sun set there so late, and it was so warm, extremely warm. You couldn't sleep actually. So that was becoming a little bit of a problem. No, I don't have any pictures. Sorry. We never had any camera. It's all there in the mind, in the memory. We shot the pictures in the mind. When I talk about it, I can vividly remember everything. But then words cannot paint the same picture as a photograph can. Anyhow. So we decided to move because it was we were feeling also a little ashamed to lie around there while the people started coming for attending the mass. So we left after, I think, the fourth day or third day, we left. And we decided we should leave the city late in the night, so that early in the morning, because again, this long distance traffic starts early in the morning. So we actually left very late, and as soon as we came to the outskirts where the highways so we got this, there was no, you see, although it was a city but very few trees, even in Baghdad and in the cities, it's not really a desert, but very few trees. So we couldn't find any trees. And so we just kind of rolled out our sleeping bag and just lay down. And outside the city and the outskirts, there were no electric lights. The electric lights were far away. So if we looked up into the sky, there were so many stars. And it was an amazing experience those nights we were sleeping, because we never had so many, because both of us are city dwellers. We are all from Kolkata, city slickers, as you call it. So we never had the opportunity to see so many stars at one time. We didn't even know that there were so many stars. It was incredible, the amount of stars. And then, we would exchange so many, our own way of spiritual thoughts, how the Creator has created this humongous universe. And, we were out in a journey. It was for us, we wanted to see the world, rather than become, like the story of the frog in the well. We said, no, let's just see the world. So it was for us a journey. And now a journey from one country to the other. But to see all those stars there, and imagine that they were all huge. I mean, these stars, we are told by the astronomers that they're supposed to be even bigger than the sun, some of them. So we were discussed like that, wondering how would it be? And if you could travel from one star to the other. It was just very fanciful. However, we had such wonderful talks like that. And of course, other talks too. At that time, we were thinking of doing something. Actually, both of us were fed up, in one sense, with the existing system, because either you, when you pass out, when you graduate, both of us had honors, so we could actually continue our study into the masters. In those days, I don't know about it now, but in order to enroll yourself for a master's course, you had to have honors in your graduate, as a graduate. So we had, and we could have, but none of us, both of us, we decided no, we were saving up money and we decided we'd see the world. And our idea of planning our life for the future was, we wanted not to walk the trodden path, as they say, what everyone does. Take up a job, get married, have a family. It was something at that moment, absolutely the last thing on our minds. We wanted to do something for the society. Yes, I agree. We were kind of idealists, but I think in one sense, an idealist is in some ways a little better than gross materialists. Maybe I'm wrong. Although the idealists are also materialistic. It's not that at that moment we were. But as I said, the trodden path was not for us. Like that, we had so many discussions. And you see, both of us were quite, shall I say, voracious readers. And we didn't limit ourselves to any particular subject. Whatever took our fancy, we just read it, be it philosophy, be it astrology, be it literature. Very fond of literature. I was very fond of English literature, and Maharaj was very fond of Bengali literature. So we had a very nice exchange on these subject matters. He wrote poems, me too. And like that, you see, we had, as I said, a very close bonding. And yeah. So that night, the first night out of Basra, on our way to Baghdad, that was our next destination. It was absolutely out in the open, no trees, no buildings, and it was late, very late. And what was another very interesting experience was that the night was actually lit up by the millions of stars. Of course, it wasn't as bright, luminous as when the full moon is there. But the number of stars, I mean, and they're so close to each other that they actually did shed some light. Went off to sleep at some stage or the other, don't remember. And but the nights are very out in the open. Because of desert, the temperature really tumbles. So we had a sleeping bag and we were quite cozy inside there. And then early in the morning began our, look for a ride, looking for a ride. Look, Prabhuji's, I thank you very much for this, your patient listening. But I think the time is quite late.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, sure, Prabhuji. I'm getting some messages from different devotees.
Is there any question? Is there any question? Because you see, once I start a particular episode, anecdote, incident, then it just, it's. I mean, I find the fun in details rather than just skimming over, the incident.
Yes, Prabhuji. Just for the curiosity, I personally had one question because you were mentioning that you were saving the money. So I was just thinking that it was a long journey of hitchhiking for months, and I don't know whether there was a facility of credit card, debit card, and this.
No, none of this. None of this. You see, we were depending on my mother. You see, my mother was working for the UNESCO, and she was stationed in England, in Durham, and as a UNESCO officer in the Department of Education for children coming from broken homes, because Durham is a industrial district. So there's a lot of industrial workers living there. And as you know, the malaise of alcohol consumption is very rampant. So these children needed special attention. So there were special schools. So my mother was actually taking care of I was a director for these different schools. And she would be sending me money because we were allowed to carry only, officially, out of India in those days, we were allowed to carry only $8 per head, which is ridiculous. Of course, in those days, a dollar went a long way, not to underestimate that. But that's how we financed our journey, through my mother's help, in receiving foreign exchange, because in India, as I said, you couldn't get foreign exchange as simply as you could get now. In those days, there was a lot of strict, regarding foreign exchange and all that sort of thing. So that's how we actually financed, because my mother financed it, and that's how we were able to, maintain ourselves and finance our journey, because it was not always that we got to stay in people's homes. They were very kind, especially in Europe, in Iraq, also Syria, and even Turkey. People were quite hospitable. But it was often that we were staying in cheap hotels, those hotels which were visited by hitchhikers. And, you know, what do you call those, hippies? A lot of hippies were on the way, hitchhikers, and those, it was just starting. It was just starting. They were all coming to India because India was the place of mysticism. So most of the movement of the journeys, those who were on, were towards India, and we were an extreme minority. I don't think, we never met anyone else, frankly speaking, any other Indians who were returning, who were going to the West. Those who were returning were from Europe, Westerners and Americans, who were then going to the West, returning to the West. So, yeah, as I said, that's how we financed, with the money that I received from my mother. Maharaj left a letter to you in a restaurant. Yes, that is right. I'm trying to think about the place we were staying. I forgot those names, actually. It's such a long time. How you manage visa? Oh, in those days, visa was not a problem. Oh, I mean, that was another very interesting, how we got a visa for Turkey. You see, all the way up to Turkey, we didn't need a visa. In Iran, Iraq, as well as Syria. These are the countries we passed through. So we didn't need a visa. We got a stamp at the border itself. And in fact, in those days, we didn't even need a visa for Germany. You just got a stamp at the border, allowed 3 months, which could be then extended. That was Germany. Anyway, so there was no visa problem except for Turkey. Turkey was difficult to get a visa, and we were in a hurry. So while in Baghdad, we tried several times to get a visa for Turkey, because we heard that Turkey doesn't allow any foreigners without a valid visa. So we went to the office, and I mean, we had to meet the ambassador. Because Baghdad, the embassy was there, not a consulate, it was the embassy. So, but the ambassador never shows up unless there's some serious, I mean, really serious meeting, or some business kind of thing. So we never got to see him. And we had to get a special permission, because Turkey was insisting that we should have got our visa for Turkey from India itself, from the land of origin, and that we actually couldn't get a visa from Iraq. So we had to actually speak with the ambassador, and yeah.
There is another question. One devotee is asking that how did Maharaj enroll for masters in chemistry in Germany? How was that financed? If you have some.
1 minute. Okay, I will answer. There was in between. There was another question here, asking whether we were afraid or not. On the contrary, we were absolutely not afraid. We had our what they say, the wanderlust was, making our stay. Once we had decided that we would undertake this journey, every single day that we spent in India, in Kolkata, was like, oh my goodness, how can we get out as soon as possible? No, there was absolutely no such fear, and no such, concerns about what's going to happen, and there's nothing at all. And yeah, to answer this question, you see, in Germany, even today, you don't have to pay tuition fee. The lodging expenses that you have to pay, board and lodging, that is something that you, of course, the universities have provided also a very, I would say, very cheap accommodations for students. They had students' heim, what they called students' hostel, and they were very, well affordable for a student. But tuition fee was minimum. It was just the expenses that the office incurred doing all the paperwork. That's all. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj had his cousin, that is from his mother's side, I think, if I'm not mistaken. His cousin brother, who was in Hamburg. That's why we came initially to Hamburg, because there he had a place to stay at their place. So that was, there was no expense regarding his staying. And the students were allowed to take up jobs. And there was a employment exchange in the university itself. So we would go early in the morning, enroll ourselves, get a number, and those different companies and firms who were looking for, day jobbers or part-time jobs. They didn't want to, what do you call, accept someone, employ someone on a permanent basis. It was just one-off odd jobs. But these odd jobs could go on sometimes for even weeks together. And the pay was good. So if we worked for about a week, that would be sufficient for us to survive for a month. And since we were cooking ourselves, the expenses were very minimal. So we managed that way, by working and studying. That's how we did it.
The continuation question was like the teaching medium in the universities
German.
were German. Okay.
All in German. So first of all, we had to enroll for German classes. That we did. But parallel, you could attend classes, even though most of the time we didn't understand. But that was a part of the language learning process. You hear, we were told to listen to the TV, to the radio, read newspaper. That's the classical way to learn a new language. So we were doing that. Plus we were, asked that we could attend university classes. He had enrolled in for naturally when you take up nature science subjects, there's not much of theory is required. So it was not that difficult for him, and for me it was, because I had enrolled initially for social pedagogy. That was my subject, which later I changed and I went in for visual communication. So that was it. It was initially like that, and gradually we started picking up the language, and yeah.
One Mataji, Radha Sundari Mataji, she is asking, what were Guru Maharaj's favorite foods during this journey?
Favorite fruit or food?
Food.
Look, there was we couldn't have the luxury of having our favorite food, whatever was available. Whatever was available there. I mean, you can't have dal, rice, sabji in those countries. It's not it's possible. You and Guru Maharaj speak in such similar ways. Okay, thank you.
So, yes, one devotee, Umesh Prabhuji from Charlotte, he is asking, Prabhuji, weren't you or Guru Maharaj even little bit worried before embarking on such unplanned journey? I have not come across any Indian with such hitchhiking to Europe experience.
Well, you now you have two. First, it was Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who you met, who undertook this unplanned adventure, and now my humble self. And it's a fact. In those days, as I said, we never met. In all the, I think we were journeying for over 4 months on the road, or even longer, did not meet a single Indian, either coming from that side nor going from east to west. So I don't know. You see, in I would say in posterity, thinking about it, it was planned before we even arrived on Earth. I would say it was already planned. And when I actually look back, I think very few Indians of our age would undertake this journey, because it was, you know how we are raised in those days, especially in the 60s, 50s, 60s. The children were very much in the family and close ties with the family, and nobody would even, when we would say that this is what we were going to do, people thought we were completely crazy. Anyway, what was that? The question, it was too quick. Somebody just put up a question about Srila Prabhupada. What was that? Could you please?
Yes, he's saying that it's amazing that both I know joined Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
Yes, and one another question from one Mataji was that did you encounter any hospitality at all?
Oh, so much. Incredible, as I said. And I mean, especially as I said, and all the way through. I mean, one encounter of another. So much hospitality. We were completely strangers, complete strangers to these people who actually offered their hospitality. And from a different country, from a different culture, we didn't even speak the same language. And yet, some of them just took us into their homes. That's really amazing. And these things I could never forget. Their hospitality. We had naturally some also not so hospitable experiences. I mean, some of them were crazy completely. I mean, but yeah, it was a mixture.
There was a question like, what risk or dangers were there in your journey, and then you anticipated in that?
Danger there was. Thieves, and our stuff was stolen. We were threatened because, like the one incident was that we were traveling on Hari Om Dhaka, Hare Krishna. Hostile behavior on the way by anyone? Not really, no hostile, but there are thieves everywhere. There are evil people everywhere. But most of the time we were completely left alone, and nobody really went out of the way to bother us. But this one time when we were traveling in a lorry, and the lorry had a puncture, and it was in the middle of nowhere. Now, mind you, between cities in these Middle East, in between cities, it's completely barren most of the time. Very few vegetations are there. So if you happen to have a puncture in the middle of nowhere, you're just left at the mercy, because anyone can, and that's when we once experienced something. We became very late in arriving to caravanserai. There were these caravanserais, like guest houses. But caravanserai is much more than a guest house. It's a small kind of oasis. And we had to spend the night there, because the driver was completely exhausted, and it was night, and so we decided we have to stay here all night. And he was also kind enough that he said that we could come with him the next morning, continue the journey. So we were given a dormitory. That was all which was available. And there we were harassed like anything. And what should I say? There's a lot of homosexuality there in these countries. In fact, we have met people well off who had young boys as their spouse, and written on their passport, they were accompanying them and had them on their passport as spouses, young boys. So these countries are famous for that, and other kind of peculiar customs and traditions, whatever you want. This was Iraq. This happened in Iraq. We were moving out of Baghdad and heading towards a place called Mosul. Anyhow, yeah, and it was so harassing. The whole night we couldn't sleep, actually. We were two young boys. I mean, whatever. it was really embarrassing. And we had to actually put up a fight. I don't think that Maharaj was a kind of situation. But we were in real trouble. My internet connection is unstable, it says. Okay. And we were in trouble till the driver came to our aid. And then we were left alone. I don't know what the driver said. Probably he said that we were his spouses or whatever. And then we were left alone. But it got quite edgy, quite on the point of getting very aggressive. Any more questions?
Yes, Prabhuji. When Mataji is asking, was Maharaj spiritually inclined at that time? Did you discuss it? Maharaj had mentioned in lecture he always close to Krishna.
See, Maharaj had, you see, Maharaj's grandmother, she was a widow. So Maharaj spent a lot of time with his grandmother, and she used to observe Ekadasi and offer prasadam to her Gopal deity. And so, yes, spirituality was somehow or the other, by the Lord's grace, very much what actually brought us together. It was spirituality. And along with it, an intellectual parity, as I said, there was a lot of other intellectual exchanges, and we were able to communicate on a same kind of vibrations and levels. So we were sure that one day we would actually give up everything. In those days, of course, we didn't know about Bhakti Yoga, Vaishnavism, and the ashram life there. We didn't know about that. We thought that we would have to leave everything and lead a celibate life, and very in solitude somewhere in the Himalayas, some kind of a mountain. That was our speculation. But it was sure that we would ultimately land up there. So it was no surprise that Maharaj left Germany so fast. He didn't even complete his studies, and in search of a guru. Now, if this topic, if this thematic was not a constant remembrance in your mind, you would not be motivated to actually search for a guru. So it was a very presence, the presence of this topic, was very much in our mind.
Prabhuji, I would like to share some of the comments from different devotees
Okay.
around the world. One Mataji, Madan Mohan Mohini Mataji, he is writing, Sarvabhavana Prabhuji, you and Guru Maharaj speak in such a similar ways. It's so sweet and special. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Kalyan Murthy Prabhu from Panihati, he is requesting that in future, if you may get time, please write this part of your journey in details with Guru Maharaj in like any of the near future, because this
So often, listen, so often I've thought about it, and not only me, both of us, we were thinking that it was so exciting and so variegated, the entire spectrum of adventure and mystery and everything was there. But I think we don't need to divert our attention for such mundane things. Although it happened to your Guru Maharaj, I understand that. But one has to have certain amount of realization to see all these incidences and the past and the history in the proper light. Otherwise, one might get the wrong impression. Yes, Prabhuji, our relationship continued till the last. The last time I spoke to Maharaj was in the Mayapur festival, this year's Mayapur festival. Since you know that we travel often, he travels all over the world, and I pendle between Europe and India. So most of the conversations were telephonic conversations. And whenever there was this possibility to meet, we did. And that was in Mayapur. And yeah, we were till the last.
he's also asking that did Guru Maharaj felt severely challenged during those years, or he was very calm and confident even in those days during the crisis years of ISKCON?
What do you mean by crisis years of ISKCON?
Like maybe during I think Umesh Prabhu is here. He can give more clarification. I'll ask him to speak. Raju, you can unmute yourself and clarify the question.
By crisis years, I mean when ISKCON had few legal challenges, and after Prabhupada left, a lot of his disciples had also felt disconnected, and they also left the movement. During those years, Srila Gurudev, was he even calm and confident? Like,
we were all immersed in our service. I mean, if you can name the years, I would like to
like
tell
1979, 80s, when the Dallas issue happened, and then New Vrindavan issue happened, and some of the senior disciples are happy.
No, completely. We were completely involved in the service. We were in Kolkata and Mayapur, looking after BBT. We were serving in the BBT together, just bringing out books, translating. He was translating, I was translating. We were printing books and visiting press. It was complete. The whole day was. We were busy. It didn't even concern us what was going on. We heard about it, of course. but we were completely absorbed in our service. It is during this time that Bengali BBT was flourishing, because prior to 1977, the Bengali BBT wasn't even existing. Everything was being done, all the printing was being done in Mumbai under the leadership of Gopal Krishna Maharaj. At that time he was Gopal Krishna Prabhu. And so Prabhupada, in the very first meeting, told me that I should go to Bengal, Mayapur, and start the BBT there. So I left Mumbai and I came to Mayapur, established BBT. We got even bought a rather old press, and at that time we were housed in Kolkata, in a place called Rainy Park, and there was the BBT headquarters.
There is one question from Suman Adhikari Prabhu. He's asking, Prabhu, how was the first time interaction with the devotees in Germany? Guru Maharaj mentioned that the first meeting with devotees was not very pleasant. Can you please share some light on it?
He said that it was not very pleasant, did he?
That's what.
That's all he wrote regarding that.
There are some details, a little bit details over there, but it's not too much into it. So I think that's why the devotee is asking this question.
Yeah, okay. If you don't mind, I am sorry to say that I have an appointment right now. Somebody's waiting.
Sure, Prabhuji. Actually,
and
we were so much into the relishing the class, so that's why we just keep on extending, and the questions were coming. So I was just asking the questions. But definitely, we want to put another session with you, and this discussion is giving us so much inspiration to read more about Ocean of Mercy and get might be deep diving into the life. Pastimes of Srila Guru Maharaj with Srila Prabhupada, and
yes,
also
yes.
with the devotees in that. So definitely we are getting this mood, and by the next session, I would request devotees to read more of the Ocean of Mercy, and if they have some question during the pastimes with Sarvabhavana Prabhu, they can note down the questions, and for the next session we can have those questions. And just for the last thing, that during the peak of this class time, we had 140 participants on Zoom. On YouTube, we had around 52 participants. On Facebook, we had 90 participants, and also we translated this session in Hindi. So that was like 48 participants on that. So devotees were like much connected to this session, and they were relishing the session. So thank you very much, Prabhuji. I won't take much of your time now, because we took almost from 7:30 to 9:30. It's 2 hours time you gave us. We are so much thankful. We are so much grateful to you that you gave us this time. And surely we will be in touch, and we will arrange some another session with you. So we will thank Prabhuji by chanting one Hare Krishna Maha mantra, raising our hands and loud. Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories.
All glories to Srila Bhakti Charu Swami, my very, very good bosom friend.
Hare
Hare Krishna.